Welcome. We're glad you've joined us today for an opportunity to have a conversation about some exciting changes that are coming to Sonlight Science and just a little bit of conversation about science in general for homeschooling. My name is Judy Winnock and I am the marketing sales coordinator at Sonlight. I also am a veteran homeschool Sonlight mom. And we've now moved into our second generation of Sonlighters in our household. So we're pretty excited about that. Joining me today are Luke and Amber, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Amber?
Thanks, Judy. My name is Amber Baker. I've worked for Sonlight for 18 years in product development, written many programs. Been very excited to have this opportunity to work on a science program recently. And it's been just so much fun recreating the great program we already have and just making it fresh and new. I have 3 kids of my own. One I'm homeschooling myself now, and one that's too little and one that has special needs, so she goes to public school, but we do it all here. So it's been really fun becoming a homeschool mom myself this year and just experiencing all that I do from the customer side. So it's been great.
Thank you. Hey, Luke.
I'm Luke Holtzman, and I've been involved in a lot of different things over the years. And currently, I am on the film team producing the videos for Discover and Do. I also helped write some content for the books. And so there's just, I'm just kind of involved here and there in different aspects of it. And yes, I am excited to be part of it. It is very fun to be working on videos again. And I now have daughters as well. And my 2-year-old loves what we've been producing. So, we're doing something right.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, let's start off talking just a little bit about Sonlight Science. What makes it different from any other science program that's out there?
Well, first we use the greatest books around. I love the color in them. I love the engaging presentation. Sarita and I have dug really hard to find books that meet the topics that we want to talk about in each level, and also that aren't boring, that are fun, that are interesting, that are fresh, that are current. And then we also looked for new books to throw in with really relevant topics like for today. So STEM and robotics and engineering and all of the really cool present day science. I mean, it changes so fast. And so we had to look at everything that was released recently to find books for this program. So it's been really fun picking books. And I just love science. My oldest is a very hands-on kid, and science is his favorite subject. So that's been fun working on this. And he's like, Mom, what are you writing today? Can I help you with it? And I'm like, yes. Here, hold this.
Awesome.
Science is also very hands-on. It's less just theoretical stuff that we're doing right now. We are working very hard to make it something that you can actually put your hands on. And that's really where Discover and Do comes in, is that you can actually do the science as well as discover it along with the instructions. It's not just something that you're going to be reading about and then just passively absorbing. You're going to read about it, and then you're also going to be involved in it, which is pretty awesome.
Awesome. That's great. Well, let's zoom out just for a minute and talk big picture. Why is science education important? What does it offer a student in your homeschool?
Luke, you start and I'll follow up. I know this is your soapbox.
Well, science is really important for a lot of reasons. It has to do with, careful thinking and looking at things from a very critical eye, but also then absorbing what that actually means once you get your hands on the truth of what this actually is, right? So science is really good from just a foundational standpoint of all of that. But as a Christian myself, it's also wonderful to see how God's world works, but then also see the mechanisms behind all of it that he has put in place, right? So that's really, really awesome. I also personally just find science to be so fascinating, because the more that you kind of dive into it, the deeper it goes. There's just so much more to learn. And my passion as an educator in science here, especially on these videos, is to ensure that you take these really big concepts and boil them down to something that the children can understand, but then also give them a taste of what more is out there. And so for me, I just love how big the subject of science is and how it really lays a foundation for a lot of stuff for thinking and approaching the world.
Yeah, and I think in this program particularly, we really strive to challenge kids to ask why. Why is this happening? Why is this the way it is? And then we give them an opportunity to explore that for themselves and figure out why, and help them learn skills to continue doing that as they grow, and not just passively sit there and absorb. Okay, mom, now tell me about this. This is what it works. This is okay. Thank you. Thank you. I've just learned that. No, you're going to ask them why and challenge them to figure it out. And they will learn so much more from doing that work themselves. And I think have a really great experience doing it.
I agree. And science was my major in college, health science. And so I am passionate about science to begin with. So I was so excited when I began to hear about the project of updating Sonlight Science, because I think we have an amazing program to begin with, and so enjoyed using this with my own kids. And I think the thing that I came away with, having taught Sonlight Science all through their homeschooling years, was that it really developed a passion in them for asking questions. They were never, or they got to the point where they were never satisfied with just the answer that I gave them. They wanted to learn more. And so I think for me, that's one of the biggest takeaways of science, is just developing that fascination and that passion with how things work, especially in creation and just the intelligent design that exists. So I'm excited that you guys are working on this project. So let's talk about this project a little bit. Maybe you guys could give us some background about what's changing and why.
Well, I think it started, we wanted to update our videos. That's really where it started. And then we started thinking, well, what do we do? Like, I guess we should come up with our own experiments so that we're sure we're doing what we want to teach and not just what a book dictates necessarily. And then we kept questioning, well, what is the best thing to teach? Like, what should we be teaching? And what is important for kids to know? And we dug around and we found the next generation science standards, which just kind of add a structure and a framework to the whole plan of learning science from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. And one thing I really like about Next Generation is that it teaches kids to think for themselves. It teaches them skills to become scientists. Like, they're always practicing, how would an engineer think through this problem? What are the steps? What is the steps of the engineering process? And then our program is going to have them practice those steps as they're doing their lesson. And then we also do the scientific method in every single experiment they do. So they start with an interesting question and they make a prediction, and then they work through a procedure to help them figure out the answer. And then at the end, you'll talk about, what did you see? What did we learn? And then have a little piece at the end that takes them a little further from where the lesson stopped. So it's just a really nice structure and a nice process. And then our videos then walk through these new experiments that we've been writing and take it even further and make it more fun.
Right, so Discover and Do takes the approach, the original Discover and Do, which I worked on. I was behind the camera for those ones. With that, it was really about demonstrating scientific principles so that kids can see it. It's real, right? There's this physical, visual thing of here's how science works. But now, in redoing Discover and Do, we are going even further with that. So instead of just demoing it for you so that you can see it, instead we're inviting the kids in to take part in it, right? So now it's not just watch it, it's discover and do. So now we are starting with a question, and then we kind of lead you through the process of doing the experiment yourself to see the answer at the end. And yes, we explain it all as we go and all that kind of stuff. But the point is that it's not this passive demo of the thing. You don't just see it unfold. Now you're actually participating in it. And the goal of this is based off of really the kind of the framework of the Next Generation Science Standards, which is that kids should actually be involved in the process of learning science and the scientific method, not just observing that anymore. So we want to help kids kind of get a flavor of what it's like to go through the scientific process. And the whole background for why you do that in the first place is because we know that the problems that we're going to face tomorrow are not the things that we know about today. And so the goal is to set it up so that students, your kids, are ready to tackle whatever new problems they face, because they have gone through the process of even discovering what it takes to make a scientific discovery in the first place. And so I'm so excited that that's kind of where we're going with this. And I'm really hopeful that our videos are doing exactly that.
And I think the other thing that's new about this program is that since we're writing our own experiments, we look back at the reading for the week and we say, okay, what are we learning about this week? All right, now we're going to take that idea from the week's reading and apply it to an experiment. And then, so you will see a connection between your experiment and what you've read that week, which is different than it's been before, but I think will really help everything you've read make sense and bring it all together.
Wow, this sounds like a huge project. I can't imagine all the details that have to go into it. Luke, you talked about Discover and Do. So let's talk specifically about the Discover and Do science experiments. What are they like? What's unique about them? What's different about them than what we've seen in the past? And maybe you could talk a little bit about the first level of our upgraded science that was released already this past year, Science K.
Yeah, so I like to quip that the original Discover and Do, I was behind the camera, now I'm in front of it. So that's kind of fun. But I'm not just in front of the camera. I'm not just acting. I am also doing writing and editing and producing and that kind of stuff. So we've got an awesome team working on it, and we're doing some fantastic stuff. The process of Discover and Do is that you kind of start with this key question. There's always this kind of, first starting place, which is, why does this exist? Why does this work this way? What's this all about? And then from there, you start to investigate, right? Which is kind of the start of the scientific process, which is you just kind of get a feel for what's out there. You make observations about things. And then you make a prediction, this is the scientific method, where you say, okay, well, if this is how this is, well, then I think that this is going to happen if I do this with it, right? And so then you're going to go through that process and see how well your observations based off of your predictions actually line up with what just happened. And then you're going to draw conclusions from that. So were you right? Did you have a proper perspective of this? Or did you just learn something new, which is super exciting? So some examples from the original level K, which is where we're starting at the very base. And it's awesome because I get to keep asking myself, how do I explain this really complex topic to a 4-year-old, right? So why do boats float? And that's an experiment out there. What is it, right? So, kids are like, well, because it's light. Well, okay, but what if it's light and it still sinks? Or what if it's light, but it doesn't sink, or it doesn't float as well as something else? Like, what is that? What's going on with that? So you're actually going to go through the process of testing different materials, testing different shapes, testing different things to see what actually makes that boat float. And I am very proud to say that with lots and lots of work, we have a very good explanation of why boats float. And it's not what you'll find on Wikipedia or Googling, because everybody else just says, well, boats float because of buoyancy. Well, cool, you're telling me that boats float because boats float. Well, that's completely useless. What we need to know, what is buoyancy and why does it work? And can we explain it to a 4-year-old? And so those are the kinds of things that we're doing. And I am psyched that we get to do it, because it is really awesome to be able to take these insanely complex topics and boil them down to something that kids are going to understand. And actually, I believe that you'll probably understand it better too after watching the video, because I know that after going through the process, I was like, oh, yeah, I understand this. My conception was actually wrong when I started. So it's been really awesome to go through that process of starting with a really cool question and then really just digging into what makes it happen and then watching that unfold as you do it yourself.
I like that you picked that experiment, because that leads on into the next two that are super fun. So once you learn why a boat floats, your next task is to build a boat that floats. And the kids will have a little challenge where they have a certain number of penny people. They have to get to float in a boat, and they have to build a boat of their own design, and they try it out and they build it and they see if it sinks, and it does. Then they, uh-oh, we better improve it because your penny people need to get across the water. So they do that, they make their boat, and then the next week they have to build a better boat. Can they get a boat to hold even more people? So it's this really fun problem solving wrapped up into science. And that's all that engineering is engineers are constantly thinking to improve what design is out there, how do they make it better? And your kids get to do that at age 4 and 5.
And I think from the perspective of a homeschooling mom, we're probably going to learn a whole lot as well, which is very true about homeschooling in general, but especially so in the subject of science. And so I'm excited to, maybe I'll get to teach my grandchildren science so I can go back through all of the new science programs as we release them.
Well,
So
what you just said, Judy, I completely agree with. Like, what is so awesome, one of the many things that is awesome about homeschooling is that we get to learn alongside our children. I love that. And I love that even working on a program, I get to learn even more too. So yes, this whole process is so awesome because education never stops. It's this thing that we are always doing. And I love it. And I love being part of it.
awesome. And it should never stop. And that's, I think, is the key. Absolutely. So let's talk about the Discover and Do videos themselves. So you kind of teased some of the experiments in our K-level program. Why, Amber, you said that one of the original reasons why we decided to update our science programs was because the videos needed updating. Why? I taught all my kids with those wonderful Discover and Do videos. What's wrong with them?
Okay, well, nothing's particularly wrong with them except that they're really old and they don't do everything that we want to do now. So one of the things 20 years ago when we made these things, longer now, oh my goodness, okay, is that we shot them very low resolution. You didn't have 4K TVs back then. You didn't have the high definition cameras that we have now. The other thing is that we were younger when we did this, and it was very fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing. We just kind of pointed a camera and shot it and did it, and we kind of just went for it. And looking back on it, once we realized, hey, this isn't 4K, can we get that at least 4K? But also the descriptions, the instructions aren't as clear as we would like them to be. They are tons of fun, and Justin was phenomenal, right, doing it, and as also Ike and Brittany. But the clarity wasn't really there. There's a lot of take the thing and do the thing with it. That's not very clear. So our goal here, as we jump into these new videos, is that we want really good visuals, so it's very clear. And so we're shooting at 4K, and it's awesome. It's pristine. It's great. But then we also wanted very good audio where it's very clear. So we also have written very specific scripts to teach exactly the concept and make certain that it's clear. In fact, one of the goals in the background here is that you could turn off the video and just listen to the audio and still get the whole lesson, which you could not do with the original Discover and Do. So we want this to be very clear and really something that you're going to grab onto. But then beyond that, we want it to be a lot of fun. And with the original Discover and Do, it is a lot of fun because of the personality, but not necessarily because of what we're doing. We just put on a bunch of weird hats and we, did some funky stuff here and there. But really, it wasn't a lot of fun just because of what's happening in the videos. And we are trying to do a lot more of that with these ones. And I think my favorite example of that is some of the side characters that come in and visit. And we had a little bit of that in some of the videos. But here now you get to see more of that, and then also just the activities that we're doing. And we also get to do some riffs and other things that I'm just very excited for you to see. I'm not going to spoil them all right now because they're great. They're a lot of fun.
They're silly in there. There's some fun. And I think I let my children watch things when I'm doing something else in the kitchen. And so, Mom, even if you're not watching the TV, you can still hear the lesson and understand everything that's going on, and hopefully get some of the funny jokes Luke in the films put in there.
So every fun video I've ever watched, or many fun videos that I've watched, will have a bloopers reel at the end. Are you going to see any blooper reels at the end of the Discover and Do videos?
I was able to produce blooper reels back with the original. I am really hoping that I'm able to find time to do that because, yes, there is a ton of stuff. I already have a timeline going with many things on it. And it's awesome. Whether I have time to cut it and when I'm going to get that out there, I don't know yet, but I'm so excited for it.
So tell me something about the K-level video, maybe a fun story of something that you shot that maybe didn't go the way it was supposed to the first time, or something that you just had a lot of fun with.
Well, okay, I could spend all day doing those kinds of things. There's so much. The first, okay, so the first experiment that went wrong is very memorable. We were doing the experiment. We're following along. All of these have been tested. It's all supposed to roll. Everything's good. We know the book's solid. What's going on here? We film it, and it's one where you kind of get a squishy egg at the end of it. Like you're figuring out what a reptile egg is like. So you're going to kind of dissolve the shell on the egg, and then you're going to feel kind of that inner membrane thing from it. And so we do it, we set it down there, we leave it overnight as you're supposed to, and then we roll the camera the next morning, and I pull out the egg, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And now I'm like, this isn't squishy. It's not squishy at all. Why isn't this squishy, right? So this is all on camera, and hopefully we'll go in the blooper reel, right? And so it's like, what is going on, right? What did we just do? And this is what's awesome about science. You get to go figure out what just went wrong. And this is what the students are encouraged to do as well. When things don't go right, this is what we want you to do. Well, we went digging through it. We thought back, we looked at things. We were like, oh, okay. We didn't put it in enough vinegar to fully dissolve it. So the chemical reaction stopped. It's just sitting here. So to solve that, we had to go back in time. And so we created a time travel loop in our video. And my initial idea, because I'm very pragmatic with my approach to filming, was, okay, I'll just walk in and be like, hey guys, don't forget, you need to change this up. And Jonathan, who's working with me on this, he's like, oh, that's a cool idea. Yeah, we'll do something with that. And I walk in the next day and he's like, here are 3 new pages for the script. I was like, what is this? And he said, well, I wrote you a time travel section. And I made certain that it all made sense and that it worked. And I was like, what? So yes, the team that we're working on is so creative and so funny, and it is great. It is great. We were able to meld it. It's phenomenal. I'm so psyched for you to see it. It's a blast. And that's one example of you do the experiment, it didn't work. Now what? Especially on camera, that's embarrassing.
What a great educational opportunity. Even
Absolutely.
Scientists make mistakes.
Yes. And I think that's one of the most important things that I want kids to walk away with from this, is that science is something that we're constantly learning more about. It is a growing subject. It's something that there's more to learn. And so often there are things that are taught as like, it's this, and it's this box. But no, there's way more beyond the box. Just keep going, just keep digging, keep pushing. And sure. I want kids to critically think about and have the tools to critically think about the things that they're taught and hear about in the rest of the world, where they say, this is how it is. You go, I don't know, that doesn't quite sound right. And with the misinformation that's in the world right now, it is very important to be able to think critically and follow the scientific method to say, okay, what actually makes sense with this? Because there are so many different views on things, so much stuff. How do we actually start to learn to critically work through all of this so that we can, as educated people who love other people, get out there and do good stuff in the world?
Awesome. Amber, what would you say was your greatest challenge with the Science K project?
I think coming up with all the ideas, so never easy. And I even just yesterday, I'm still working on experiments for another level right now, and you can hit a wall with like, oh, what do I teach here? And I just am so thankful for the team we have going, because I sent a chat to our group and I was like, what do you guys think of this? It was like the best I had. And they were like, that's kind of dumb. Like, oh, okay, let's put our heads together. And so we did. And I think the idea I have for today is a lot better than it was, but I just love the collaboration for that I get to work with for this project. It's really fun. And more ideas are better than just the ones I have. And so that's been fun. I think other challenges with K. I think refining and just deciding what we wanted our experiments to look like and what is that framework they're going to fit into. there was a lot of back and forth and how about this and how about this and how about this. And as a team, we finally settled on let's follow the scientific method. Let's keep the main instruction short and clear. And then we have all these extra little sidebar ideas and things you can pull in that just help round out your lesson. And they're off to the side out of your way. So when you're teaching, you can get through the main stuff and then pull in these really cool extra tidbits as you're going and just expand what you're teaching really easily without having it feel really heavy and weighted down. So I think just defining what that lesson was going to look like. And then also I love that when you're going through our lesson, you can just sit down and read it. You don't have to prep anything and you just read it to your kids and you're ready to go. You don't have to read it, internalize it for yourself, and then tell it to them in your own words. No, you don't have to prep that. We just taught it. We just read it out loud.
And
Awesome. And I'm excited because I think all of our Sonlight families are going to so benefit from that collaboration that you described. Knowing the team as I do, and just what a great bunch of minds we have put together for this team. I think families are truly going to benefit from that collaboration.
Yeah, collaboration and iteration. We are definitely going through many, many processes. In fact, for me on the film team, we're trying to go for like 6 iterations on a script before we even look at filming. Because when we've done ones with 4, we get on set and we're like, well, that's not as clear as it should be. And so it is really awesome to just constantly keep rehashing and going over it and saying, okay, is this as clear as it can be? Is this as good as it can be? How do we make this more fun? How do we make this more clear? And yes, all that extra content in the book and also in the videos, it's something that I'm so excited about because, again, it shows the expansive nature of science, where you're not just going through this one experiment and then you're like, okay, I get it. In fact, all of the lessons end with a go further. There is so much more out there for you to learn and see how this applies to. So each activity has not only what you're learning about this particular scientific subject and kind of that thing that you're discovering about the world, but then you see how it applies and you can push even further into those subjects to kind of start to see how it all interconnects and builds on what we've already learned and where we're going. That's another cool thing, is that we're definitely working on this kind of building ideas process as well as much as possible. So yeah, there's a lot with this. I'm super excited about it, if you can't tell.
That iteration is happening with the experiments before Luke even sees them. So we have an idea and we try it out and we test it. And then our experiments go through a testing process where homeschool moms are working through them before we put them in the book, and they say, we don't like this and this is hard. And then we have a team looking at the materials, like how can we simplify this? How can we make this super easy? So you're using things you have at home, or we can include in a kit for you. And it's not overwhelming. So we're keeping it really clean and clear and simple, and still teaching really solid concepts as every day.
And I think one of the exciting things is, who knows what next famous scientist is going to come from the foundation of Discover and Do Science, because of all of that collaboration and because of the passion and excitement that you guys have built into this program. I'm excited to see what the future holds. One last question to kind of wrap things up. You mentioned earlier a number of times, both of you, about the next generation science standards, the NGSS. What does that practically mean to homeschool families? Why does it matter that that is the framework on which our science programs are being rebuilt?
I think first and foremost, it's that it provides a structure and an approach that is different than where we came from. And just to reiterate it, sorry if you've already heard this before, but the idea of just demonstrating it was something that we were very happy with for 20 years. And it was really good. It really was nice. But there's more. There's an opportunity to invite the student along with you on the journey, where you're actually not just witnessing the scientific process, but partaking in the scientific process. And I completely agree with you, Judy. I am excited to see what scientists come out of this, right? Because this is so awesome and fun. So starting with a framework of, here are kind of topics to think about, to make certain that we're introducing year after year after year and kind of rolling through, and what, how does this all lay out? Amber already mentioned this is kind of a framework for multiple years as you look at your overall scientific instruction. But also, I think the big change was the idea from just witnessing the science to partaking in the science and learning it yourself. The goal is to discover on your own and do on your own. But because that's hard, we also have the videos to support you, because we want to make this as painless as possible for busy homeschool moms. And back when we created the very first Discover and Do videos, we created it because we found out that there were a lot of homeschoolers that weren't getting around to science, because it's hard. It takes time. You have to go grab the materials. You have to do all this stuff, and you have to break away from kind of what you've been doing. And with Sonlight, you've been reading a lot, and that's way more fun. And so we wanted to create something that you could at least see what was being done, so that you would at least get that stuff. And what was awesome back when we created the original Discover and Do is that students would see it and they'd say, well, now I want to do that. That looks awesome. I want to take part in it. And so we actually not only created a tool to help people who were busy and couldn't get to science, but also actually inspired more families to do science. And I am really hopeful that we're able to do that again, and even to a greater extent with these new Discover and Do videos.
Yeah, and I think there's one piece, like the NGSS standards wrap together 3 different ideas. It wraps together topics that are relevant at each age level. It also pulls in scientific and engineering practices. So what are the things that scientists and engineers do in order to do their job? And so they've identified a whole list of these things, like question, reiterate, improve. And so those are pulled in to the experiments as you're doing them, and your children are going to work on those skills. It's not just topics, it's also skills wrapped up into the lessons, and your students are going to learn the skills as they're going through this program. And then what's the third piece? It's in there. Anyway, there's 3 pieces all wrapped together, and we love that planning piece has already been done for us, so we can just follow it and apply our great books and the way we want to teach, and let's be fun with this topic to the framework that's already there. And the thing I've noticed too is on the days when I pull out these science experiments, I can pull in kids, like the kids from the neighborhood just kind of flock, because what we're doing is so much fun. It's way better than playing in the backyard or whatever they're doing. They're engaged, they're excited, they're curious, and they get a chance to get messy, and it's totally worth me as a mom finding that time to invest. Let's do 30 minutes, 45 minutes of this little lesson, because they're like glued in, and then I can be done and they can keep going. They can keep playing with whatever we were doing, and they love coming to my house because of my science stuff. So.
And I'm really hoping that people also want to rewatch the videos a bunch. I'm hoping that this is another opportunity for something that you can get introduced to a topic, but you don't always get it all the way into your mind right at the first viewing or first go. And so my hope is that the videos are enjoyable enough that students also rewatch them and then get a deeper understanding as they do that, while also giving mom a chance when she's making dinner to be like, hey, just go watch those scientific videos again. So I'm hopeful that also is part of this, although that's not the main focus of what I'm doing, but I'm excited that that is one more little benefit that's out there.
So Science K is done, it's wrapped, it's out there, and people are using it and loving it. If our customer feedback is any indication, which it typically is, but we're not stopping there, correct?
No, we have 1st and 2nd grade in the works right now, hopefully available this summer. I'm working on 2nd right now, and we'll loop back to 1st and I want to get this done. So yes, the books are planned. The experiments are the heavy lifting, and so that's what we're trudging through right now. But yes, good things to come, and then it will continue on after that. We just have to have the time to do it. So more levels to come.
All that iteration actually takes a tremendous amount of time, and it's so worth it. It is absolutely worth it to take the time to work through it again and again, just to make it really clear and really excellent for you. We're doing that work, and that is important work to do. And as educators, we take that incredibly seriously.
Because our goal for you as a mom and a dad, when it's experiment day, we don't want that to be like, it's easy. You open the book and here's the list of things you need, and here's your kit, and you just start reading. You don't have to figure anything out. It's all right there for you.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited all over again for our new science that's coming out, and can't wait to see what you guys and the team are going to come up with. So thank you both for taking time out today to chat with me and with the folks that are watching about the exciting things coming up in Sonlight Science.
Thank you, Judy. It's been fun being here. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing about how science goes for you.
Thanks.